Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2.
All right, I'm going to get started with just a few housekeeping items for a moment. So we have our emergency exits are right over there. Sorry, first of all, my name is Amanda Brenner Cannon. I am a program director with the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. And like I said, we're going to get started, and I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. Exits over there and over there. We are broadcasting live through Zoom, and we are recording. If you are participating through Zoom, questions were taken ahead of time. Any questions that were uh, received early on will try to be asked during the live Q&A at the end of the presentation. Your audio is turned off. So as mentioned, any questions you have were taken ahead of time. If you do have questions that come up during the presentation, we will give you an opportunity through the website to ask those, and we'll try to get those answered later on. If you have cell phones, please silence them. We do have surveys that are that can be taken picked up at the door. You can fill those out through on paper or via a QR code. And any questions that you have, please hold to the end for the Q&A. And also, we invite you at the end of the presentation and the Q&A to visit our resource tables and have conversations and ask any questions that you have to our partners here and our guests from the Wildfire Service, Cal Fire, County Fire, and such. So without further ado, I introduce Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you so much. And it's really a delight to be with all of you. And I want to first start by saying thank you. You do incredibly important work. And I know these community outreach meetings are really important as it relates to helping people be prepared for what we know is going to continue to come our way. I think one challenge we have, and I think it's a great challenge, is that this year we didn't see the kind of fire activity, at least that I'm always terrified that we're going to see. And what I worry so much about is out of sight, out of mind, that we start to feel safe and comfortable and then something happens and we react. So one of the reasons I'm so grateful to the leadership of each of you is that you're helping the community be prepared for for what we think of as the unthinkable, frankly, even though we've had it in our backyard already. So I would just say for anybody who's in the public, especially if you're watching this online, to make sure that your questions come in. And if those of you in the community would like to get more involved, we'd love to help and support. That, I think, Zach, you just cut me off. Just kidding. Anyway, so I'm delighted to be with all of you. And I do just want to say a very sincere thank you for the incredible work that each of your agencies does and each of you do individually.
With that, I invite Dana from the Office of Emergency Management to talk.
Well, thank you, Dana Reed from the Office of Emergency Management for the County of Santa Clara. And I just want to thank Supervisor Chavez for being here tonight and certainly for her opening remarks and the support to the CWPP process. So thank you for that. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the hazard mitigation plan that's in progress. Every 5 years, the plan has to be reviewed and revised, and that's where we're at right now doing that. And the importance of that is a whole community planning process with all 15 jurisdictions. We even have the water district with us this year in the process. And the importance of that is that this is where we identify opportunities for mitigation projects. We also identify the vulnerabilities and the hazards to the community and all the 15 jurisdictions and certainly the county as well. It also is the mechanism by which we are qualified to apply for certain types of grant, for example, mitigation grants. If you don't have that in place, it's one of the requirements to even get started in the grant process. Parastuna Najaf is our mitigation specialist. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here tonight. She is ill, and so I'm sitting in her place tonight. But she's really our specialist. She's done an amazing job of working through the CWPP, the safety elements plan with the planning department, and it is the lead for the county and for our office on the hazard mitigation plan. So it's in progress. It's being revised. We're working with all the jurisdictions. One of the nice things is we actually got a grant to do this revision of the HMP. So we're able to do that without impacting fiscal budgets for all the jurisdictions and the county. And it's actually a good example of how we plan. So with that, I'll be here if there's any questions from the audience or from folks online. But just know that we fully support the process. We really enjoy working with the CWPP team. Of course, our planning department on safety elements plan. And I'll be here, as I said, for any questions. So thank you, Seth.
Thank you, Dana. I appreciate it. And let me also extend a thank you to Supervisor Chavez and to your wonderful staff. They've been quite supportive and excellent to work with, and we appreciate the opportunity to address the audience tonight. My name is Seth Shallett. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. And before we get going, I just want to take a very quick moment and let everybody know that's in attendance and that's listening that the CWPP update has been funded by a $250,000 grant by CAL FIRE. And so I want to thank CAL FIRE, the SCU unit, Chief Ed Ore and Chief Wong. And without further ado, to walk you through the 2016 CWPP and to bring you current, I want to introduce Chief Ed Ore, Division Chief with the SCU unit of CAL FIRE. Chief.
Thank you, Seth, and thank you, Supervisor Chavez, for your great intro. This is going to be a product of all of our efforts, and we've got the will and desire and funding, and everything is in place now. I'd like to start out by making sure everybody understands what a CWPP is, why it's important, and why we're all here. And it started out as a federal product in 2003 from the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. And so this is something that you can see all around the country. It's not unique to us or even California by any means. Every CWPP tends to be very different, but they all have three basic things in common. They all require collaborative planning on behalf of the stakeholders and the public. And that's why the Fire Safe Council is reaching out to everyone over the next few months. Within the CWPP are a list of priority projects that have been developed through collaboration, through recommendations, through a variety of ways that will be a list and by priority for what we should be doing. The CWPP is our common operating picture. It's our roadmap to some future desired condition. And that is, the way I like to explain it is, in the future, a wildfire would be nothing more than just a bad storm where your yard gets beat up and you're inconvenienced and that's it. We're not going to lose lives, lose property, and the kind of serious impacts to the environment that we've seen in recent years. One other part of the CWPP is the reducing the threat of structural ignition. And that's more than just Smokey Bear, but it's all the things that we can do to protect ourselves working together. All of these things are a recommendation. It's not a mandate. So it has to be fulfilled through willing stakeholders and public, and it's going to require a little patience on behalf of people, inconvenience maybe by a little traffic when work is being done along a road, or a little smoke in the air from a prescribed burn, or some of those sorts of things, but it's to offset the big impacts. And the recommendations have priorities, so we will start at the top of the list and hopefully work to the bottom. And it's a living document, so we will add to it in the future. What's the next important thing that we should be pursuing? Also, because it's recommendations, the CWPP document in this process do not qualify or it does not trigger CEQA because it's not a project in and of itself. It doesn't come with funding. It doesn't come with any environmental compliance. It doesn't come with permits. And it doesn't come with landowner permission. So all the heavy lifting on making things happen is still in the future. Next slide, please. So I would like to explain some of the history here. This is an update, as Seth has mentioned, but the previous or the current countywide CWPP was completed in 2016. But a precursor to that was a series of smaller ones for portions of the county. In 2008, the Lexington Hills commissioned a CWPP for their area. And then in 2009, there was one for the East Foothills. And Los Altos Hills developed not quite a CWPP, but something very similar, a wildfire management plan. So in 2014, Santa Clara County Fire was the driving force to establish a countywide CWPP. And they applied for a CAL FIRE grant, got that, and hired a consultant, SWCA, who is the consultant that we're using moving forward. They did an excellent job before, and they have some really great ideas for this update as well. So the 2016 plan was completed in August of 2016, and it was scheduled or planned to go to the Board of Supervisors for approval and the fire chiefs for signature. And then we had the Loma fire. I don't know if you recall that, up in the Loma Chiquita area. And that was about 4,474 acres. It impacted a number of priority projects that were in the CWPP. It caused us a tactical pause, and we, many of the key stakeholders, we discussed it, and we felt that we should make some amendments or edits to the document and then push it forward for signatures. Well, to be honest, life got in the way. We didn't quite do that. There's a number of reasons for it, but the long and short of it is it was never formally technically adopted. So that brings us to now. What do we want in the current CWPP? It is an update, but there was a lot of lessons learned. Let me start out by pointing out a few things, just jog your memory. Since 2016, the world's a very different place. We didn't get a great turnout for the 2016 public meetings, but people in general here didn't feel that we were at the kind of risk that maybe they feel now. CAL FIRE keeps lists of major incidents, a top 20 list, in fact. And since the 2016 document was approved, since then, 12 of the top 20 largest fires by acreage occurred. Since 2016, 12 of the top 20 most destructive in terms of dollars occurred. Since 2016, 7 out of the top 20 most deadliest fires have occurred. So, you know, that's only 6 years ago. Also, since then, we had a 1 million acre fire. We had 2 fires that went from the west side of the Sierras all the way over to the east side. The fire suppression costs and the cost of recovery have just grown astronomical, and they're not sustainable. So the legislature, the governor, the county, CAL FIRE, County Fire, everyone has taken a number of actions to try to prevent these kind of catastrophes from happening again in the form of prevention. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So money going to prevention activities and things like the CWPP are really important. But also since 2016 are the smoke impacts. So even if you weren't directly impacted by a fire, you were impacted by the smoke, whether you know it or not. There's a number of area closures. So maybe a vacation destination or visiting grandma or any number of things like that were probably impacted. Your insurance rates, if they weren't canceled, they certainly went up. We had PSPS events. We all know those. And then, of course, large scale evacuations that have impacted tens of thousands of people in the vicinity of fires and ripple effects from that. So that, again, that's only 6 years ago. So keep all these things in perspective. You can see the acreage here on this screen, showing how recent fires have grown. Next slide, please. So the 2016 countywide document covers the entire county. And many other counties have done that. But what other counties typically do is they develop the countywide plan, and then it's up to individual stakeholders to then develop their local CWPP or a annex to that on their own dime, on their own time, et cetera. But what we chose to do in 2016, and what we're doing now, is we're doing all these annexes with willing groups concurrently. So it's all paid for. Just need to show up and provide your input. And this way it will ensure that it is all consistent, no conflicts, also consistent as Dana had explained, for the local hazard mitigation plan and the safety element and so forth. So some real strong benefits for doing it that way. Lessons learned. SWCA did a great job. We're bringing them back. We should not have delayed the approval process. We should have brought this document to the Board of Supervisors in the original timeline. One of the things we discovered is that the issues that we were concerned about having been negated are back in effect now, because the vegetation that we were planning to treat that burned up is all grown back. And then human nature being what it is, you know, those risks and concerns are still remain. So we should have gotten it across the finish line. But anyway, another is we had no provision, we didn't think of it at the time, to develop some sort of a clearinghouse or like a water master or somebody that would be responsible for the CWPP moving forward, or a facilitator. So that person, group, whatever, would have been able to help foster collaboration amongst the stakeholders, because many of the projects in the CWPP were collaborative, multi-jurisdictional, and getting somebody to break the ice and to bring the parties together and just be that spark plug is really important. And then also for transparency to the public who participated in 2016, they would have had the opportunity to see, well, what'd you get done? And where are we? And all of those things are going to be addressed later in this presentation to show how we're compensating for that correctly. Also, we missed a number of important stakeholders that either they weren't poised to participate, or we didn't reach out adequately to them, a variety of reasons. And so we're trying to up our game with outreach, encourage more participation. And then the last thing is we didn't ask for a spatial geodatabase for the projects. So it was a little bit harder to keep track of what was planned where and what was done where. That'll be taken care of forward. So in 22, 23, we have a number of things that we've been talking about behind the scenes, which Seth will address here shortly. But one of the big things is we're going to have this new finer resolution risk, actually a hazard assessment that I'll describe in a little bit more detail here in a minute. And then a video you'll see soon, we'll touch on some of these a little bit more thoroughly. Next slide, please. So, back up, please. So here, the fine scale mapping, well, let me back up. Following the 2017 fire siege in Sonoma County, the North Bay fires, Sonoma County needed data to manage. They wanted to know how they could take actions to prevent a repeat of that fire siege. And various parties got together and they developed a plan to create a geospatial database that would include information from throughout the county, from stakeholders, contributors, to prepare better hazard maps and better risk maps. And other counties saw what they were doing. Marin County then followed suit, then San Mateo County, currently Santa Cruz County and Santa Clara County are well into repeating that same effort. And then Alameda County and Contra Costa County have expressed interest, and they will be up next. So CAL FIRE has provided substantial funding for this because one of the components of this is the fire and risk assessment work. It's actually a fabulous data set for any land manager or even the public for managing floods or wildlife habitat or forest management, any of those things. But going from, as I'll show in a minute, 30-meter resolution down to 5-meter is a game changer for us. All of this was done primarily by the consultants Tuckman Geospatial, Digital Mapping Solutions, Wildland Res Management, and several others. The current work being done within Santa Cruz and Santa Clara County is being coordinated by the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network. So, next slide, please. So here's the map that you would see in so if you could back up a little bit, please. Must be right before this one. There it is. So this is the map that was in the 2016 CWPP. It's based on 30-meter data using Landfire, which is a commonly used data set for fire modeling. And you can see the amount of red that's primarily in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Many organizations have prepared hazard and risk maps, and this one used one particular model. Now, jumping forward to the 2022 map, we saw briefly, that utilizes the new fine scale mapping products. All of this is available to the public, all the data that is, at pacificvegmap.org. You can go there and download it in various formats. And this is what you'll see in the upcoming CWP. Next slide, please. So, kind of a side note, because there are so many different organizations preparing hazard and risk maps, CAL FIRE and the Office of the State Fire Marshal is no exception. Currently, we are using maps from the early to mid 2000s, and those were in need of updating. So next week on the 12th, CAL FIRE is going to be releasing the updated versions of the fire hazard severity zone maps for the state responsibility areas only. Later in 2023, the local responsibility area will also be released. there's a 45-day public comment period required by the Office of Administrative Law and Public Resources Code. And that will open on, I believe it's December 9th, and it closes on January 31st. There will be one public meeting just to solicit input from the public and interested parties. And that'll take place in Morgan Hill at the City Council chambers on January 10th. So you're welcome to participate in that. I mention this because you will see various products come out, and I just don't want to see that confused. So totally separate. Next slide, please. Oh, but I wanted to mention one other thing is that even though there is no SRA land in Supervisor Chavez's district, CAL FIRE has 557,000 acres of responsibility area in the county. And so we treat that very seriously, and I apologize that Chief Long couldn't be here to present himself. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Chief Oray. I appreciate the background and insight. It's been 7 years since 2016, or 6 years, so a lot has transpired. I want to take this opportunity to explain and walk the audience through how the CWPP has come to be, take it from where Chief Oray left off to what we're doing now in the 2022-23 CWPP. So we've actually been engaged for the last several months with many of our partners here in this room, County Fire, CAL FIRE, the Office of Emergency Management, the County Office of Planning, during what I would refer to as a bit of a quiet phase, kind of behind the scenes, getting ready to really start the process of our public phase, which had started really on the 1st of December with our first CWPP Town Hall in Arizona. But we received our grant funding from CAL FIRE, I believe, back in August, and we actually started our work on the strategic planning for this shortly before that. And so as we sort of took a step back and reflected on, ultimately the goal here is to deliver on the 2016 CWPP, but to the extent possible, upgrade our product. We want to take advantage of the new technologies in mapping, the new understanding of wildfire risk throughout the county. And we want to make sure that we have a lessons learned from the challenges that we faced in 2016 and put a plan together to hopefully mitigate those challenges and put a better product out for the public and engage the public as effectively as possible. So we really have three, what I call prongs to the CWPP formal structure. Prong one is the CWPP management team. And currently that consists of about 15 people. And the CWPP management team is responsible for the overall success of the project. I guess you could say the buck stops with the management team in terms of adjudicating any documentation, any final content, any additions that are debated. And we hope to have a healthy debate, not only internally, but with our public partners as well, and all of the stakeholders and residents of the county, because that's why we do this. We have, as Chief Oray mentioned, SWCA. They are the lead consultant that's responsible for the story map and some of the mapping of the product. And we have, as I mentioned, all of our county agencies and county partners. And we have also implemented a public information outreach, or PIO team, that's going to help us with events like tonight and other events throughout the course of this project. And ultimately, when the product is finally released and we take the bows off and introduce it to the public again, we will have yet another public-facing meeting, a countywide public-facing meeting where we hope to have live Q&A and engage the community members to answer questions. Prong number two of our three prongs is the advisory team. And today that consists of about 27 to 30 people. It's a pretty robust team, and they're all subject matter experts. Some of those will be people from large landowners, such as San Jose Water, Valley Water, PG&E, but people with significant land holdings and significant wildfire risk. We also have some formal expertise, ecologists, fire ecologists, researchers, kind of a broad spectrum so that we can really have a holistic approach to our evidence, because we do want to deliver an evidence-based and a database set of solutions that we can back up and validate as we release this to the public. Ultimately, the advisory team will be our first level of making recommendations on everything from what should be the formal annex structure to what are all the components of the plan. And then we will work closely with the advisory team, and ultimately the CWPP management team will work to resolve any discrepancies and ultimately deliver the formal product. The third of the three prongs are really, I think, perhaps our most important, and that's the CWPP stakeholders. It's the people in the room tonight. It's the people in all of the town meetings. It's the people that might see broadcasts or listen to audience broadcasts, because really we want to engage the public. It's about public outreach, public input. So the stakeholders are comprised of, obviously, you, the public, what we call influencers and partners that will support the overall residents or the overall implementation of the plan, and of course, residents of the county, and particularly those that live in the wildland urban interface areas, AKA the WUI parts of the county. Next slide, please. So what I wanted to do is take just a few moments for those that haven't heard of the Fire Safe Council, give a little bit of a background about who we are, how we came to be, and why we're partnering with all of the agencies you see here tonight. We started off 20 years ago, very typical for what started out as a grassroots organization, citizens concerned about wildfire risk. Many of the initial founders, the folks that started the Fire Safe Council, lived in the wildland urban interface. Some of them were retired fire personnel, but all of them had an interest in not just protecting their own homes, but making sure that there was a support mechanism to aid the county and provide significant support and fill in some of the areas where it's not always easy for the county partners to be able to get to. So that's how the organization came to be. Over the years, we've historically been and predominantly been, frankly, a grant-funded organization, thanks to many of the partners that you see up here. CAL FIRE, County Fire, Santa Clara County Fire has provided funding, but they've also provided significant in-kind support. So when we go out and do projects, often we have the opportunity to engage with County Fire personnel and CAL FIRE personnel, and they help us complete our tasks. As time progressed, the organization has evolved, and we've become, if not the biggest, perhaps one of the most sophisticated of the Fire Safe Councils in all of California. We've got a history, which I'll walk you through at the next slide, of actually taking on some of the largest wildfire mitigation projects in the county, and an increasing history of securing larger, more complex grants, and introducing new services so that we can innovate and be a more valuable partner to our residents, to the Board of Supervisors, and to all of our partners. The slide that you're looking at here is a bit of a detail, kind of I don't want to say a greatest hits, but a highlight list of some of the major projects that we've done. And I would say back in 2016, we really began to earn our stripes significantly. Not only did we work with the original incarnation of the CWPP, but in 2016 and 17, we received funding and a contract, and we were involved quite significantly working with all of our partners on the Highway 17 fuel break. Many of you might remember that fuel break. Perhaps you might have been stuck in traffic or had to use some side routes, but it was a real significant project with all of the county agencies, Caltrans, all of the partners here tonight. And we played a significant role in working with the public, communicating with the public, and helping to coordinate all the agencies. And one thing that I can say is in the ensuing years, since that fuel break has been completed, anyone that spends any time on Highway 17 knows that there's usually a breakdown, and in some cases, car fires. And we can say with evidence and confidence that we've helped mitigate and slow the spread of some car fires from catalytic converters on the side of the road. So we're very grateful that the work that we have done and helped to do really has shown evidence and efficacy here for the county. A quick rundown of some of the projects that we've worked on and are currently working on is a fuel break in the Charcoal Road area. We also have a partnership with the Los Altos Hills County Fire District. We've done a fuel break, almost 6.5 miles on the Page Mill Road area. And as we speak, we also received about 4 or 5 months back, almost a $1.5 million grant from CAL FIRE. And as Chief Ore mentioned earlier, back in 2016, there was a fire, for example, in the Loma Chiquita area. We're now able to focus on some of those projects that for a multitude of reasons couldn't be refocused in the 2016 timeframe. So we are currently working on and planning a Mount Madonna and Summit Road escape route, a Loma Chiquita escape route, a Chul Spur escape route, and a project planning for the Bowman Road escape route. Lastly, I just want to list what we are currently involved in, and it's one of the projects, frankly, that I know myself and our staff that are here tonight and our board are most proud of. It's the Forest Health Grant. We applied and put together a collaboration of partners, including San Jose Water, Mid-Peninsula Open Space, San Jose Water, and Santa Clara County Parks. We came together to apply for a grant, and it was a 4 or 5 month process. We had to recalibrate, restructure, re-strategize a few times, but ultimately we received what was the largest forest health grant that CAL FIRE awarded last year, $7.5 million 3-year forest health grant to treat approximately 1,100 acres in the Los Gatos Creek watershed. What's unique about this grant is it's not just wildfire mitigation, but it also includes a number of forest health treatments. Some of you may be familiar that there's a lot of sudden oak death. And so drought stress and other issues have continually challenged the area. And our project will do a multitude of wildfire mitigation efforts and forest health treatments. And I want to thank our partners for that. Next slide, please. So what you see here is kind of a full timeline that we want to share with the public in terms of what we expect to take place and when we expect the key milestones to take place for the CWPP. As you can see, 1 through 4 have already really transpired to one degree or another. We started putting together the teams, as I mentioned earlier. Task 2 was formulating and engaging those teams. We hosted a series of advisory workshops, and then really went to work on data gathering. And a project like this is really only as good as the data integrity, right? Everyone has heard the term garbage in, garbage out. And we want to make sure that we have a chance to go through all of our data. As Chief Ore mentioned, take the opportunity to update the fire hazard severity maps. And so we started that process a number of months ago, and it's ongoing. The risk assessment, as Chief Ore had stated earlier, was in part done by Tuckman Geospatial. And we'll talk a little bit later tonight about how we're incorporating that risk assessment with the upcoming CAL FIRE new fire hazard severity zone mapping. Of course, today, this is meeting 3 of our public outreach. We're doing a series of town hall meetings, 5 in total. The first one was on December 1st in Saratoga. The second one was last night in Campbell. The third one is tonight here in San Jose. And the next 2 will be on Tuesday, the 13th of December in Milpitas. And the last public one will be Thursday, December 15th in Morgan Hill. And I want to let those listening in on our Zoom and those here know you can come to any and all meetings. It's not restricted by where you live. It's not restricted by what district you live in. So if your question didn't get answered today, come to one of our 2 remaining meetings and we hope to answer that. Now what I'd like to do is take a few minutes and show you one of the significant upgrades of this CWPP from 2016. As Chief Ore mentioned, the prior product was really a phone book sized document, maps, action plans, et cetera. And one of the challenges is any document like that, it's easy for it to collect dust. And what we want to really do is take the opportunity to make this an interactive CWPP, where the folks, the residents in the county can see our progress, mark our progress, submit questions, and actually submit projects that they'd like us to consider. And if we have the opportunity, we'll be able to show those projects on our story map. So we're going to take the next 10 or 12 minutes and show you a pre-recorded video of a story map. Now, it's not the exact story map that our CWPP will have, but it's an excellent representational example of what you see. And so now I'd like to turn it over to our video portion of tonight's event.
Good evening, everyone. For the Santa Clara County Community Wildfire Protection Plan, we'll be developing a project hub site and story map to accompany the planning effort that will be a medium through which we can share information about the project and that the public can share their thoughts and input into the project. We're developing that project hub site and story map now, but I wanted to show you a similar deliverable that was developed for another project so that you all can understand what this content will look like. So this hub site on my screen is from the Three Rivers Fire Safe Council Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And the hub site and story map for Santa Clara County will be a similar format to this. A hub site is basically a project landing page. It's sort of a one-stop shop for all project information. So within the hub site, we have a link to the story map, which I will share shortly. We also have posted a dashboard, which can be linked to all of the project recommendations that are developed as part of this CWPP, and it will provide updates on progress made towards each of those projects. We can link to community survey, and we'll also have links to other homeowner resources that could be valuable to this community. That includes things like emergency notifications, information on wildfire mitigation measures for actions around your home, and other resources that might be pertinent to this project. We can also post information on upcoming meeting schedules and announcements. So the hub site will be the place where we'll announce the availability of the draft document for review by the public. And then we have information on contact information for the project team. From the hub site, you can access the story map. A story map is essentially a website that conveys all of the information about the project in a spatial format. So you treat the story map like you would any website. You can scroll up and down, and you can access content through this navigation panel along the top. A story map is designed to be very interactive and has a lot of spatial content, so hence the name story map. It has a lot of map content that you can engage with to learn more about the project. So you can zoom in and out. This layer here is the general location for this particular plan, and they'll be very similar for the Santa Clara plan. We have information on the project. We can put information on current wildfires. So this is a dynamic layer where it will show existing and active fires in the event that there are some. We have information on project history, information on the National Cohesive Strategy, which is the federal oversight for the plan, information on the Healthy Forest Restoration Act, and then information on how to navigate, since this might be a new platform that some people have not utilized previously. We also have a page on public involvement. So this is a good place for you to learn what upcoming scheduled events there are, links to other communication tools, so links back to the hub site where we were previously, links to social media that the Fire Safe Council has information available through, and other information through a CWPP flyer or community survey. This section is entitled the Fire Environment. It has a lot of technical information. So this is where we will provide information on the wildland urban interface. You can zoom into the map. You can click on each of these polygons to learn more information. You can click on photos. And you can click on the polygon. And this will link you to more information that will come up in a pop-up section. We also have a section on fire regime. This talks about how each of the different vegetation types would burn within the planning area. We have mapping on vegetation. You can learn about different vegetation types. Then we have maps that convey fuel models. So how would each of those different vegetation types on the ground burn? And we have this toggle tool that shows you how vegetation is classified into different fuel models. And you can click on the legend and it will tell you more information about the fuel models. And then if you want to learn more about the fuel models, you can click here for a description of each of the fuel models. This section talks about fire history. We have this tool at the bottom. If I click this play button, it will move us from 1910 all the way through to present day. And each of these areas that are populating on the map are previous fires that have occurred within the vicinity of this particular project area. You can click on each of these fires to learn more information about it, what the name of the fire was and the year. And then we also have graphical data here that conveys information about the fires. So if you're interested in how many fires have occurred in July over this time period, you can click on this bar and it will generate those fires on the map. Or fires by cause, how many arson fires have there been in June, in May, in August? It will show on the map those particular data. Then we have background information on the fire season and challenges, including climate change. We have information on decision support tools that our fire responders utilize. We have models of fire response, information on who the local response resources are, as well as state response and federal response. We have evacuation resources where you can click for more information. And then we have evacuation route risk analysis that shows within the community which roads are at higher risk for entrapment or evacuation risk based on features of that road, including things like sinuosity, road surfacing, grade, and width. We also have road entrapment analysis and different zones for evacuation that have been delineated by this particular core team. Then we have our wildland urban interface risk and hazard assessment. Again, you can zoom in and out. The areas in red are obviously high risk. The areas in green are low risk. It serves as kind of a heat map. You can click on the polygons and then download PDFs that provide more information about how the hazard assessment was completed and the specific findings from that assessment. And then to zoom in, just keep scrolling, and we have a summary of the positive and negative ratings or components that went into that particular rating and recommendations for mitigating that risk. And as we scroll, it zooms us around our project area to look at the various different community polygons. We have a section on values at risk. These are all of those things that are important to the community to be protected. And we use this information as the core team to help us develop recommendations for protection of those various different values at risk. This is a very data-rich layer, so it's going to take a little bit of time to populate. But we have each of those values broken down into natural, socioeconomic. And you'll see they're starting to populate now, including things like fire departments, communication towers, hospitals, and cultural values at risk. So historic properties, archaeological resources, cultural landscapes, and other infrastructure that should be protected. Mitigation strategies are what form the real meat of a CWPP, and we break those mitigation strategies down into the three main components of the National Wildfire Management Cohesive Strategy. And those components are restoring and maintaining landscapes, fire adapted communities, and fire response. So when we talk about resilient landscapes, we're talking about restoring and maintaining those landscapes using methods like hazardous fuels reduction or vegetation management. So as a core team, we develop recommendations specific to this resilient landscapes component. We develop tables that summarize different treatment options, and this will be part of the CWPP. Within these tables, we have a project description. We identify the priority for that project. We look at the status of the project, the location, and who the land ownership would be. We develop a methodology or approach to implementing that project. We describe, by implementing that project, what does that serve to do to mitigate wildfire risk? We have a timeline, we have monitoring or maintenance requirements, and then we provide various different funding sources. So we have these tables developed for various different projects across the planning area. So for the county, it's going to be across the county. We will develop projects for hazardous fuels mitigation with each of these components to it. Here's a map of the various existing and planned treatments that are occurring within this particular project area. So we gather all this data from our agency partners and put it onto this map. So it's a place where all agencies can see what other actions are occurring within the landscape. We also then identified areas of concern. So you can scroll back and forth. This layer here shows the risk assessment. And this layer here shows various different polygons that have been delineated by our planning team to address some of these higher risk areas. As you can see, these polygons delineate around some of the high risk areas. We have this section on fire adapted communities. Fire adapted communities focuses on projects related to education and outreach for communities, as well as actions that homeowners can take to address structural ignitability. You will have a lot of resources for education and outreach, particularly within the state and also within the county. Lots of agencies have developed materials that will help inform you all on what you need to do on your property. And we convey that information here through actions for homeowners. Click on various different additional content that provides pop-ups. And then this third section is on safe and effective wildfire response. This provides recommendations to help support your fire responders. So the local fire department, the Cal Fire Department, and other resources that provide that emergency management and effective response. So if I were to click here, that'll take us to a similar table of recommendations. And then monitoring and evaluation strategies. It's important that this isn't a one-time deal to address mitigation. A lot of projects need to have repeated and frequent maintenance and monitoring. And so we have recommendation tables that identify how frequently each of these projects should be monitored or revised. And the timeline for updating the CWPP. This plan should be considered a live document. The core team will be reconvening every 6 months, every year, to make sure that the project is moving along, that the projects are being implemented, that there are not any hurdles that are preventing implementation of projects. And they'll be revisiting and recognizing when they need to update the document. We also have a section on post-fire recovery that provides resources for homeowners and for agencies for returning to your home or to your property after there's been a fire. And then we have available other homeowner resources. As I mentioned again, a one-stop shop for resources that are specific to Santa Clara County and to California. When the draft document is available for review, it will be posted here and you'll be able to click and it will generate a PDF of the document that you can then download, review, and provide comment on. And we have this contact us page so you know who to reach out to for any questions. And then we also provide a glossary and references. Thank you for your time. We think this tool is going to really provide a lot of value to this planning effort, and we're excited to provide the plan, the hub, and the story map to you in the next month or so. Thank you.
Again, thank you for narrating that, Vicky Amato from SWCA. She is the senior project manager that is working and engaging us. And hopefully you found that insightful. Again, it's not the exact story map that we will have, but it's a representation of what we think we'll be able to introduce perhaps within the next 60 days. We actually thought we might be ready tonight, but we still are in the data gathering and data scrubbing stages, but you'll see that implementation shortly. Before we get into the next and final phase, which is our question and answer phase, we want to take questions from attendees, and there are some questions from the public that we want to get to. I just want to take a quick moment and make some acknowledgements. It's really important that we thank all the people that made this CWPP project possible. And first and foremost, I want to extend a thank you to Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors. The Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council recently came across a grant opportunity for what's called a county coordinator grant. And it's a $175,000 18-month grant. And we worked and partnered with the Board of Supervisors, and we are grateful that they endorsed the Fire Safe Council. And we submitted an application for that grant. And if we do get that grant, we will use it to help keep the momentum of the CWPP. We will take the final document and we will work with all of the partners and all of the annexes to prioritize whether it be vegetation treatments or other aspects, and track the progress of that over the next 18 months. Now, we all know that there's 3 guarantees in life, and I know that winning a grant award isn't one of them, but we feel pretty good. And again, I want to thank all of the Board of Supervisors for their support. I also want to thank Supervisor Chavez's excellent support team. We couldn't put together tonight without the support of Betty Duong, the Chief of Staff, Kathy Sunderland, who's the scheduler and was my initial point of contact, and grateful for the support and work of Jack McGovern, who is a policy analyst, and also a great support from Amy Nguyen. I want to thank each of you for engaging with us and putting tonight together. Lastly, before we get into Q&A, I also want to extend a thank you to our partners at San Jose Fire Department, in particular, Assistant Chief Jave A. Williams. Thank you for sitting on the dais with us and being here. And a special shout out and thank you to Fire Safe Council Advisory Board member and Wildland Officer for San Jose Fire Department, Mark Thomas. Thank you for all of your support during these efforts. I greatly appreciate it. And I think without further ado, unless there's anything else that we'd like to go over, I'd like to open it up for Q&A. And so if anybody here in the audience has a question, please come up. We do have microphones available, and we'll be glad to take your questions and do our best to answer them. And while people here perhaps mull over what questions they may want to ask, you know, I want to bring up some questions that were asked to me in advance, because I think that they're germane to the public in general. And one question that I've been getting a lot over the last 6 or 7 weeks is, why now? Why have you decided to take this opportunity to update the CWPP now? CWPP now. You know, and the reality is, we can always say there's never a great time, but there's no time like the present. A couple of things came together to make it happen. One of them was the gracious funding from CAL FIRE with a $250,000 grant award, and funding is absolutely integral. But we also have been in discussions with our partners at Santa Clara County Fire and have had the opportunity to present to all the county fire chiefs, and there's now time to engage. And so this process is a 10 to perhaps a 12-month process. We're now just getting into the 3rd inning of the game. And so it's an excellent opportunity so that we hope by the end of 2023, we'll be in a position to formally introduce this to the Board of Advisors, get acceptance, and then be able to roll it out. So that's why now. Any other questions that we have from the audience? I do have a couple of questions that came in earlier, and I want to open it up to our distinct and distinguished panel here. Let me just pull up some of the questions, and let's start off with, are CWPP's policy or legal documents? Again, the question is, are CWPP's policy or legal documents? And let me open it up to the panel here, and who is dying to answer that question?
Ed. I'm gonna say Ed.
Chief Foray.
Yes, sorry, Chief Foray.
Well, I would think neither actually, but closest to policy. It's a set of recommendations that has been from the ground up, and it doesn't have the mandate. So there is no CWPP police who will be out enforcing any of these measures that are crowdsourced. It's a living document and one that will be hopefully adaptable to our needs in the future.
I think it would help if I turn the mic on. So the question that came in that I wanted to share with the audience is, how will the actions identified in the Community Wildfire Protection Plan be implemented? Again, how will the actions identified in the Community Wildfire protection plan be implemented. Is there anybody here from the Fire Safe Council or our county partners that would like to take that?
Start off.
Amanda, the floor is yours.
All right. So I will start the first part of this question and then pass it off to probably Chief Fourier again. Sorry. So through the grant process, the Fire Safe Council, well, first of all, starting with identifying projects within the CWPP, that's where we really start. So when a project is identified and it's in the CWPP, the Fire Safe Council can be a guiding organization that can go through the process of developing a proposal for a grant when one is provided. Typically, they're through California Fire Safe Council or through CAL FIRE or even federal grants in some cases. So through the process of the Fire Safe Council and in writing those grant proposals, we can try and secure the funding and be that agency to one, secure the funding and also manage the projects. So I'll just put the ball in Chief Fourier's court now.
Well, I would say in the future, when we do have this completed matrix of projects that are identified as priorities, that the willing stakeholders would then move forward with securing the funding, whether that be through a grant or through a stakeholders' internal funding source. Either way, that takes time to budget for it or to apply and finally receive. Same thing with environmental compliance. The CEQA process can be extensive and take a year or more. If a land manager has an existing EIR or some other CEQA document that covers the activity proposed, then that will greatly streamline and simplify that moving forward. But and also some of those large stakeholders have their work schedules planned out a good year in advance. So it takes some time to orchestrate all of these pieces and parts to get it together, just as you've learned with the forest health project. And then you have to have multiple projects in different stages overlapping and so forth, just to keep going. But there's a number of organizations that would be in a supportive capacity with labor or dollars or so forth as well. Anything that any of the fire organizations, any of the land managers can do to assist.
I think the Forest Health Grant Project is a really good example of how projects within the CWPP can get done. As mentioned, Fire Safe Council securing a grant through CAL FIRE and working with our project managers for this specific forest health project. We've got our project manager in the audience, working with, it's a collaborative approach. So working with Mid-Penn and county parks and all involved, even some landowners, and doing the CEQA and all of the legwork ahead of time to do the projects. It's a group effort. So it's not just having the funding available and securing the funding with whatever organization that is, but having the guiding organization, Fire Safe Council, Resource Conservation Districts, whoever that might be, to manage the project, but also coordinating with our partners to get the work done and getting all of the environmental compliances and all the permits and then actually doing the work. So there's, once we do the identification of the project, priority projects, and then there's just a lot of details that go in between it. And it takes some time and it takes a lot of people and it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, I think this question actually is excellent. It kind of really points to the whole reason we're here tonight. I think how things get done are going to be through partnerships. And that's what this is all about, is creating partnerships and opportunities. I also think it's a great example for the hazard mitigation plan. So if you have an identified project through that process, that then makes that project potentially fundable through a mitigation grant. So that's another mechanism where you've got the connectivity of the CWPP to the HMP locally, and those connect together, and then you work on getting that project started and getting the funding for it and seeing where you can take it. But I think at the, you know, as a just a general wrap up summary of that is it's really about the partnerships that get created with all the entities, including the local jurisdiction that has the need for that project to get done and completed.
Dana, actually, thank you very much for that answer. And it's just fortuitous timing, but actually the next question is somewhat related to what you were discussing, and maybe you and I can collaborate it. But one of the questions is, I understand the county is updating its safety element. How do the CWPP and the safety element interrelate and coordinate?
That's a good question too. So the safety element plan will address various issues, and it is being updated right now, but it'll address things such as land use planning, roads, evacuation, planning routes, and things of that nature. So, you know, part of the CWPP is to help protect the community and make it safer for all our residents. So the safety elements plan is also a requirement to be done that also connects to CWPP and supports it. It helps us move forward with recommendations of what we need to do overall throughout the county to enhance wildfire safety and community planning, evacuation routes, roads, those types of things, water sources. And then the HMP has a requirement for the safety elements to be connected as well. So these three plans are really important. While they're each separate in nature, at the end of the day, they are all connected in some way, shape, or form to strengthen the entire community and the entire operational area.
You know, and if I may add on to that, you know, one of the questions that was asked earlier was, you know, why now? And, you know, one of the reasons that I didn't address at that time, but you jogged my memory, you know, as you say, we now have the synergies of working on the hazard mitigation plan, the safety element, and the CWPP at the same time. So I think we, through our collaboration and partnerships, the county ultimately and the stakeholders will benefit by integrating and doing these documents concurrently at the same time so that we can be in sync. And certainly the CWPP will be informed by the latest safety element data and vice versa. So it's an excellent opportunity to get real-time coordination and make sure that the organizations are working closely together.
And I might add that all of these documents do require some level of public participation. And so it shows the grantees, whether it be the federal government, the state, or someone else, that the projects have been publicly vetted, that it's not somebody's pet project, good idea in a vacuum. It's something that we all want, and that makes it score higher and more apt to succeed.
Thank you. I also want to answer a question that came in, and I think it's a very, very good question. And the question is, I live in an area where you're not doing a town hall. How did you wind up selecting the 5 specific town hall locations? And that's an excellent question. And the reality is we wanted to cover as much of the county as possible. And we thought it was important to do at least one town hall in each of the 5 supervisor districts. Sure, look, if we had more time and a larger pot of funding, we certainly probably could have added more meetings. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that not just through these public town hall meetings, that you can answer and ask questions online to the Fire Safe Council. We have an email address that we'll give out a little bit later. Just like we've accepted questions for tonight and all of the other CWPP meetings, just because we might not have a town hall in your town doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity to ask as many questions as you want, as frequently as you want. So at the end, as I mentioned earlier, once we have the completed CWPP, our hope is that we will do a county-wide one final plan where it'll be a moderated Zoom or moderated event where we can have real-time engagement with the audience, and then go over the recommendations of the CWPP and answer questions in real time. But in the interim, please feel free to reach out to the Fire Safe Council. We'll give you all of our contact information. And if we can't come to your specific town, we certainly hope that you can come to any of the remaining CWPP town halls and ask us questions that we can share with the advisory and the management team.
Seth, I'll just add quickly, the slide that's currently up, there are a series of QR codes. You can also see our Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council website. If you visit that, there's a wealth of information, but you can also go to the projects page and visit our CWPP update project. There you'll find any of these QR codes will get you there as well. Use your cell phone camera. So we have the CWPP website. We have the survey that I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting that you can either fill out by paper or virtually. We also have a question area. So if you don't have any questions tonight, you can certainly ask questions anytime during this process, and we will add that to our data set that we're collecting as we go through these meetings. And we also have a CWPP mailing list that we hope to have updates every couple of weeks to let folks know where we are in the process. But as Seth mentioned, this is not the only opportunity to ask questions or give feedback. We will, through the website, through the questions form, or any way you choose to contact us, we are here and ready to listen to whatever feedback or questions that you might have.
Thank you, Amanda. And so with that, let me ask, I'll give a going once, going twice. Are there any questions from the attendees in the audience? Going three times. So I want to say thank you to everyone in the audience. Thank you for our attendees. Thank you for all of the partners we have here tonight for your time and engagement. I will toss it over to Amanda. We have a series of tables in the back of the room, and if any of the attendees would like to come tonight and speak with any of us and answer any one-on-one questions that you might not have been comfortable with asking in person or on camera, please come out and see us, and we'll close the evening. Perhaps Amanda explain what we have for the attendees to come and see.
Yeah, throughout the meeting, we've discussed a few points of the cohesive strategy, fire adapted communities, fire response, and forest health. So there are tables in the back of the room with various resources of information. We invite you to take whatever you want. And we have a great group from County Fire, from San Jose Fire, from Cal Fire, from Fire Safe Council. We've got our project managers for the Forest Health Grant. So anybody here that you like to pick our brains a little bit more and have conversations with, we invite you to, like I said, one, take any resources that you want, and talk to us, ask questions.
And with that, we will wrap up tonight's town hall meeting. A quick reminder, our next town hall meeting is Tuesday, the 13th. It will be held in Milpitas at the Senior Center, and all of that information, as Amanda said, could be found on our website. So Tuesday in Milpitas, Thursday in Morgan Hill. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening and enjoy tonight.